Remember, the 5th of November, the Gunpowder Treason and Plot. I see no reason why gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Guy Fawkes, 'twas his intent to blow up King and Parliament. 70 barrels were laid below to prove old England's overthrow. By God's mercy he was catched with a dark lantern and lighted match. Holla boys, let the bells ring. Holla boys, God save the King.
There we are, back with our man, Sir Everard Digby, and we're going to be going into the plot and plotters now, or more into it. But before we do that, I want to move you on to one of the most important things involving the Gunpowder Plot, or what proved to be one of the most important things involving that plot. This letter, known as the Montego Letter, is a very, very important document. This is basically what alerted authorities to the plot. Had this letter never been sent, the plot may well have succeeded. But this is an anonymous letter sent to William Parker, 4th Baron Montego, was instrumental in revealing the plot's existence. Its author's identity has never been reliably established, although Francis Tresham has long been a suspect. Montego himself has been considered responsible, as has Salisbury. So as I say, it's still not known, but this letter was sent to Lord Montego, and the letter basically warns him not to go to Parliament, for all that go there, and the King and whatnot, shall receive a very great blow. And Montego, being a Catholic and this and that, rather than listening to this letter and just not going and keeping stum about it, he took this letter to the authorities, and the letter was brought before the King, King James, and this is what foiled the plot. But this is very important, so I wanted to show this. But back to our man, Sir Everard Digby, and the rest of the plotters. Of the 13 conspirators, only 8 are shown in the poster, and you have Baxter, Robert Winter, Christopher Wright, John Wright, Thomas Percy, Guido Fawkes, who is 3rd Wright, the main man himself, Robert Catesby, almost as well known as Fawkes in this little plot, and Thomas Winter. Our man himself isn't shown in this image, and a few of the others aren't, being lesser plotters, and in the case of Sir Everard, coming late to the plot. But come to that plot he did, and he paid for that decision with his life like the rest of them. And now we pick up on Sir Everard Digby and his role in the plot, and also Robert Catesby, second from the right. Digby and Catesby's connection is what brings him into the plot. In late August or early September 1605, Digby, his wife Mary, and their secret Jesuit chaplain Edward Alcorn joined a pilgrimage organised by, amongst others, Father Henry Garnet and Anne Vaux. The party had set out from White Webb's at Enfield Chase, heading for the shrine of St Winifred's Well at Holywell, and had occasionally stopped along the way to collect more followers. As the 30 or so pilgrims returned from Holywell in mid-September, they stopped at Rushton Hall, where Sir Thomas Tresham had recently died, and then continued on to Digby's seat at Gayhurst. On the 21st of October, Digby, his wife Mary, Garnet and Vaux were at Harrowden celebrating a delayed feast of St Luke. While there, he met Robert Catesby, who at some point asked him to swear on an oath of secrecy before introducing him to what later became known as the Gunpowder Plot. Catesby's second right, as I said, and it's Robert Catesby who brings our man into the plot. English Catholics had hoped that the years of persecution they'd suffered during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I would end when James I came to the throne, as his attitude appeared more moderate, even tolerant towards the Catholics. In Catesby's view, however, James had reneged on his promises, and he had quickly lost patience with the new Stuart dynasty. He therefore planned to kill James by blowing up the House of Lords with gunpowder, and then inciting a popular revolt during which a Catholic monarch would be restored to the throne. Catesby had enlisted the aid of other Catholics, but had borne much of the scheme's financial cost, and was running out of money fast. The group therefore agreed to expand their numbers. To this end, Catesby had recruited Ambrose Rookwood, a young and wealthy Catholic, with a stable of fine horses, and a wealthy cousin, Francis Tresham. The extent of Everard Digby's knowledge of the plot is unknown, but in the opinion of author Alan Haynes, Digby was shocked by what he heard, and asked what would become of some of their Catholic friends. Catesby replied, "Assure yourself that such of the nobility as are of worth the saving shall be preserved, and yet know not of the matter." The Montego Letter crops up a little bit here, hint hint. None of their friends would be caught in the explosion. He asked if Catesby had spoken of the matter with Father Garnet, or any of the other Jesuits. Although Catesby was in no doubt that the Jesuits would disapprove of such an action, he lied and said that he would not act without their approbation. Catesby then named the other conspirators and promised Digby that as soon as they reached Gayhurst, he would demonstrate that their religion allowed such acts of genocide, thus dissuading the young lord from confessing to Garnet and discovering the Jesuits' opinion of the matter. Catesby told him to rent Coulton Court from the head of the Throckmorton family, so that he would the better be able to do good to the cause, which was to kidnap the Princess Elizabeth, daughter of King James I. From there, he was to organise a hunting party, in reality a group of armed men on horseback, and to be ready for some kind of military manoeuvre. Digby also provided monetary assistance. He promised £1,500 after fellow plotter Thomas Percy failed to pay the rent due for several properties in Westminster. The hunting party. Guy Fawkes' house, formerly known as the Red Lion, where Digby was installed on the 4th of November 1605, just one day before Guy Fawkes would be discovered and the plot foiled. On the 2nd of November, All Souls' Day, at Gayhurst, while making preparations for his hunting party, Digby was visited by Father John Gerard. Having noticed that the house was almost completely empty, the Jesuit asked him if there was any matter in hand, and if Garnet knew of it. Keen not to implicate Gerard, despite being told less than 2 weeks earlier that the plot had Jesuit approval, Digby told him that there was nothing he knew of, nor could tell him of. Although Gerard later used this conversation to defend himself against those who accused him of involvement in the plot, he lived to regret not being given the opportunity to dissuade Digby from his course. 2 days later, Everard Digby and his servants were ensconced at the Red Lion Inn in Dunchurch, where his hunt was to take place. He took with him several items of clothing, including a white satin doublet cut with purple, Also present, but uninvolved, were his uncle, Sir Robert Digby, Humphrey Littleton, and his nephew Stephen Littleton. They ate supper before being joined by fellow conspirator John Grant and a friend. Also invited was the stepbrother of plotters Robert and Thomas Winter, John Winter. They attended a mass the next morning conducted by Father Hammond before the party moved on. At around midnight on the 4th of November, Guy Fawkes was discovered guarding the gunpowder and the plotters had placed beneath the House of Lords, and he was arrested. Those conspirators who were still in London soon took flight for the Midlands, finding along the way those who had already left to prepare for the planned uprising. They met Digby and his party at Dunchurch. Catesby told Digby that the King and Salisbury were dead, and if true, Catholics would now stir, he doubted not, that they might procure to themselves good conditions. Digby was won over, but many of his party were less than impressed at being so badly deceived, and worse, being associated with treason. One of his servants asked Digby what would happen to them. Digby told him that although he was aware of their ignorance, but now there was no remedy. Join me again soon for part 3, where they are caught, tried and executed.